are present. Has everyone had an opportunity to have a break? And during this break, did you violate any of the court's admonitions? Did you consult any outside sources? No. Did you have any discussions or begin any deliberations? No. Did you do any independent research? No. Are all of you prepared to proceed? Yes. Okay. All right. Any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, call your next witness, please.
State calls Miranda Goddard, Your Honor.
Just take the stand facing Judge. Raise your right hand, please, ma'am.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated.
Ms. Goddard, if you wouldn't mind to state your name for the record, could you spell it for us, please?
Miranda Goddard, Miranda Goddard.
And Miranda, how old are you?
26.
And do you know, or did you know Jimmy Shelton?
Yes.
How long had you known Jimmy Shelton when he died?
About 15 years.
You can pull your chair up just a little bit.
About 15 years?
Yes, ma'am.
What was his relationship to you?
He was my mother's boyfriend, kind of like a stepdad.
Had he lived in the same house with your mom for that whole 15 years?
Yeah.
Okay. What did he do for a living?
He worked at Costco.
Okay. Did you know the defendant? Do you know the defendant in this case, Sean Patrick Foley?
Yes.
How do you know Sean Foley?
He was my boyfriend.
When did you all become exclusive in terms of your boyfriend-girlfriend relationship? Do you remember?
It was in June, I think, June 26th.
Of 2018?
Yes.
And what kind of work was it that the defendant was doing at the time Jimmy Shelton was shot and killed?
He wasn't currently working.
Where was he living or staying?
In Gatlinburg. When everything happened, he was staying at my mom's house.
All right. Who all was staying at your mom's house at that point in time?
My mom, Jimmy, my sister, our children.
Your children, meaning you and your sister's children?
Yes.
And how old was your daughter at that time? Your oldest one?
She was 3, going to be 4.
Okay. And how about Marissa's your sister, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And how old was Marissa's daughter at that time?
She was 4.
So it was you, the defendant, Jimmy, your mom, Dawn, Marissa, and then your 2 kids, or
Yes.
yours and Marissa's kids?
Yes.
And that was at 808 Beaver Drive?
Yes.
Now, at that time, what kind of a car was it that the defendant was driving?
I think he had an Integra. I'm not real good at cars.
Oh, that's okay. Was it working?
Not at that point.
How was he getting from place to place?
My sister, I think.
Okay. So, were you working at that time?
I was.
Where were you working then?
I was working at a pizzeria in Gatlinburg.
Okay. And you've had other jobs?
Yes.
Can you tell us about some of the other jobs you've had? One of them was at Claire's, right?
Yeah, I used to work at Claire's. I've worked at Little Caesars. I worked in a nursing home. I currently work at Agape, and it's a rehabilitation center for mentally ill men.
Okay. Did you ever do any kind of jobs related to sex or get any money related to sex?
Yeah, I used to be a dancer. I've sold adult content. I've made videos before.
Okay. Were any of those videos involve Mr. Foley?
Yes, we have made videos together that we sold.
Okay. Were those videos, the adult content videos, they were sexual in nature?
Yes.
Did Mr. Foley know about the work you had been doing the sexually related work?
Yes.
So on the particular night, back on August the 28th of 2018, where were you before you ended up at the house?
I was in jail.
Okay. And who came and got you out of jail? Do you remember?
My sister and Sean picked me up.
Where did y'all go?
We went from the jail to get to Full Service Barbecue to get some food, and then we went to the liquor store, and then we went to my mom's house.
How long had you been in? Was it about 10 days you'd been in jail?
Yes.
Where had Sean been staying while you were in jail?
From what I knew, he was staying with my mom and with his ex-fiance.
Now, once you all had gone to Full Service Barbecue, where did you stop before you got? You stopped somewhere before you got to your mom's.
Yeah, we went to the liquor store and got vodka.
Okay. And so, do you remember what time it was when you all got to your mom's that night?
I don't remember exactly what time
now. Now, so when you got to the house, who all was at the house that night?
When we got there, my brother was there, his girlfriend, my sister, my daughter, her daughter, my mom, Jimmy, and then, of course, Sean and myself.
Okay. What was everybody doing at this point in time?
We were just kind of hanging out at the house.
Okay. Was anybody drinking alcohol?
I was, Jimmy was, Sean had a couple of shots. My sister was pregnant, so she couldn't drink, and I don't remember if my brother was drinking or not.
All right. I'm gonna show you what was previously marked as Exhibit 11. It'll pop up there right beside you, I think. You see the diagram there?
Yes.
Do you recognize that diagram,
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Goddard? Does that accurately sort of reflect the way the house is laid out at 808 Beaver Drive?
Yes.
Could you tell us, we see it bedroom 1. I know you can see it, but I'll walk over there. Who's staying in bedroom 1? Go ahead right here.
My sister.
Your sister?
Yeah.
All right, what is this over here? This
That would
room?
be the master bedroom.
That's the master bedroom?
Yes.
Who stayed in that room?
My mother and Jimmy.
And then in bedroom number 2?
That's where Sean and I were going to be sleeping.
All right. Can you get that clear button down in the corner for me on the screen? So where was everybody initially before people started to go to bed? Where was everybody sort of hanging out when your brother was there?
Like where it says the kitchen, like the kitchen bonus room area.
Okay. Was there any issues with anybody?
Not that I was aware of.
Does Sean Foley have a daughter?
Yes.
Does she ever stay at this house?
Yes, she has.
How old is the defendant? Was she at that time?
She was 34 at that time.
Where did she sleep when she stayed at this house?
She would sleep either in my mom's room or she slept on the floor in the room we were in.
What kind of relationship had you observed up until this point between the defendant and Jimmy Shelton? Had there been any issues?
Not that I was aware of. I thought they got along pretty well.
Did they do things together that you were aware of?
Not that I knew of. I know that like they had bonded some while I was in jail because he'd stayed over there some.
Okay. Now, did you know in this particular night, did the defendant have a gun? Did he carry a gun regularly?
He did keep a gun with him, but he didn't always have it on his person.
Okay. What kind of a gun was it?
I don't know what kind of gun it actually is.
Okay. Was it a handgun or a long gun?
A handgun.
Okay. Did you ever handle that handgun?
I have handled it before. I've never fired it though.
Okay. Did you know of other people having handled that handgun when you were around?
Not really.
Okay. Did you ever see anybody else with Sean when he had that handgun out?
No. I mean, he's had it like in front of me or his brother, his family and stuff, but
Okay.
not like, I don't know, just not like using it.
I got
It's just like he has a gun.
Okay. All right. On the so after y'all have been there and been hanging out for a while, eventually, do you remember who went to bed first?
No, I wasn't paying attention.
All right. At some point, are the only people that are still up you and the defendant and Jimmy?
Yes.
Where are you all hanging out at that point in time? Do you remember?
We were on the back porch. I know at one point we were in the man cave, but I don't actually remember being in there.
Okay. So y'all are hanging out on the back porch. Do you know what time that is?
Not really. I know it was really late at night.
Now, had you and the defendant, Mr. Foley, had you all had any kind of a conversation about some kind of a deal you might be going to work out with the victim, Mr. Jimmy Shelton?
No.
Okay. Now, what was everybody drinking?
I was drinking vodka. Sean had only had a couple of shots of vodka that I was aware of. Jimmy was drinking Southern Comfort with tea.
On this particular night, did you see Jimmy with any kind of a weapon?
No, I don't remember seeing him with a weapon.
When you all were on the back porch, was there any weapons on the back porch at that time?
Not that I was aware of.
Now, when at some point the defendant goes inside, why did the defendant go inside this night?
I had asked him to get me a shot of vodka.
Did he go to do that?
That's what I thought, yeah.
Okay. Was he gone? How long was he gone?
I didn't think he was gone that long.
Okay. What happened while he was gone?
I know now that he was recording
Okay.
a conversation.
What's happening on the back porch while he's gone?
Me and Jimmy were talking. I was asking him why he did the things that he did in the past, and it just escalated from there.
Okay. When you say it escalated from there, what do you mean?
He propositioned me in order to get a car.
Okay. Were you a willing participant in that conversation?
Yes.
Was there anything about that conversation that was forced by Mr. Jimmy Shelton?
No.
Did he ever force himself on you?
No.
Well, now, what was the deal that you all were working out?
He was trying to look at me and maybe touch me or have me get with some friends and like record stuff so that he could see it or him record it himself. I don't really remember all the details of the conversation.
Okay. So at some point, do you remember whether your pants were down during this evening?
Yes, I know when Sean walked out, my pants were down.
All right, can you tell us about what happened when Sean walked out?
I pulled my pants up and Jimmy stood up, and that's when Sean started yelling at Jimmy.
Did Jimmy ever tackle Sean?
I didn't see it happen.
Okay. What caused the defendant to shoot Jimmy Shelton?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm going to show you what we've called Exhibit 14 previously here on the back porch. Miss Goddard, if you actually touch that screen, it'll write on it. Can you circle for us where Jimmy was sitting that night? Okay. Do you know where you were standing or sitting?
I was in front of him.
In front of the chair there?
Yeah.
So if we're looking at that, would that be right here? You marked it. That's hard. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to see back there. Where the little line is that where you were standing?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Can you tell us which door it was that the defendant came out?
He came out of this door.
And where did he come on the porch? Could you put another X there where he came to on the porch?
Probably about here.
Okay. And do you remember what he said?
He told Jimmy to stop touching me.
Was Jimmy touching you when he came out?
I think he had his hand on my leg, but I don't really remember.
And did you ask Sean for help?
No.
Did you call for help?
No.
Did you scream for help?
No.
Do you remember how many shots were fired?
I only heard like 3 or 4, but I know now that it was like 8 or 9.
Did you need help from the defendant that night?
No.
Have you heard the video or the audio recording, Miss Goddard, of what happened?
Yes, I have.
Did hearing that audio recording make any difference to your memory of the incident?
Not really. I just know more about what happened because of hearing it.
You hear yourself on that audio recording?
Yes.
Do you know what you're saying?
Not really. I mean, Like, I know what we were talking about, obviously, because it's being said, but I don't really remember having the conversation that well.
The contact, the consensual, is the contact between you and Jimmy Shelton consensual that night?
Yes.
Was that meant to be the contact that was going to get you the car?
Yes.
Okay. How much is the car worth?
I don't know. We hadn't furthered any discussion.
Do you know what kind of car it was going to be?
No.
Do you know if he had made any arrangements to get you the car already?
I found out later, yes.
He had made arrangements to get you the car?
Yeah, before having discussing any proposition with me.
I don't have any further questions. Hang on.
Cross-examination.
Hello, Ms. Goddard. How are you?
Wonderful.
Do you remember me?
Yes, sir.
You called Jimmy your stepdad?
Yes.
Is that how you thought of him?
He was a father figure in my life.
Was he the only father figure you had in your life?
Yeah.
Did Mr. Shelton ever touch you sexually without your consent?
Yes.
When was that?
When I was a child,
How old were you?
between 12 and 19.
Okay. And for some reason it stopped when you were 19?
No, but it was different
How was it different?
because we made arrangements. We
Okay.
would make deals.
That's when he started paying you for it?
Yeah, in one way or another.
Did those deals happen when you were sober and of your right mind?
Yes.
Okay. Did they happen when you were drinking?
Sometimes, yeah.
How often do you drink?
A couple times a week now.
Okay. On the evening of the 27th of August last year, in the morning of the 28th, during this incident, were you drinking then?
Yes.
How much did you have to drink?
Probably 2/3 of a bottle of vodka.
Do you remember what kind of vodka it was?
360, I think.
Just 1 minute, sir. Could I show the Miss Goddard exhibit number 56, please? May I approach you?
I'm so sorry.
Is this a bottle of vodka that you had?
Yes.
Okay. Is that an accurate description of how much you had drank?
Yeah.
Okay. Permission to republish, Tim.
Yes.
Can you push that clear button on the bottom, please? Thank you. Did you read?
You go to right here. Oh, okay. Thank you.
This is the level of
hear you. What did you say?
I said, I was looking at Miranda, I said, is that the level of the accurate depiction of the level of the bottle?
Answer out loud.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Goddard, do you remember speaking to anyone? Do you remember speaking to the state's investigators or police officers about what happened here?
Yes, after everything happened.
Okay. Okay. Do you know whether that was recorded or not?
Yes, it was recorded.
Do you remember on the night of the incident, after Jimmy was shot, you were standing in the street
No.
with Sean at the roadway?
No.
Do you remember being placed in handcuffs?
Yes.
Remember being placed in the back of a car, police car?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember what you said in the back of that police car?
Not really. I was freaking out.
Do you remember how much Jimmy had to drink that night?
I have no idea how much he had to drink.
Did he pull you down onto his lap?
No.
Then nothing further at this time, Judge.
There aren't any questions for Ms. Goddard.
I have two.
Okay.
Clear as mud.
Right, we can answer this at the end. I mean, is that, do you have a problem with that being part of the training? Okay, would you not be able to-
You want me to read these off in order?
You just identify the question
Okay.
in the letter, please.
Ms. Goddard, question H is, what was your blood alcohol level and when were you tested?
I don't know, and I don't think I got tested.
Question G says, where is the man cave compared to the layout of the house? And if I can reference back to the porch. So again, question G, Ms. Goddard, was, where is the man cave compared to the layout of the house? Could you place an arrow there and show the jury which direction the man cave is? And then question F, at what point did the defendant unholster the weapon, before or after Jimmy rushed him?
He came out with the gun already up.
Okay, thank you.
General Kinsey, do you have any follow-up questions?
I do not promise.
Not at the moment, Your Honor. I request you remain subject to recall.
All right, you are excused for today's proceedings, however you remain under subpoena. Thank you. Thank you. Call your next witness.
State calls Don McGinnis, Your Honor.
Would you take a stand? Please just raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Please do.
Move your chair up.
Good afternoon. Will you state your name for the record, please?
Dawn McGinnis,
Do you care to spell your last name for me?
McGinnis,
And Miss McGinnis, where do you live?
808 Beaver Drive in Maryville.
And what was your relationship to the victim, Mr. Shelton?
Fiance / partner,
How long had you all been together?
17 years.
And what is your relationship to Miranda Goddard?
She's my oldest daughter.
Miss McGinnis, if I can show you what's previously been entered as exhibit number 4, do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, sir.
What is that a photograph of?
That's a photograph of our home.
And that you say our home. Who owned that home?
And Jimmy, Shelton, and me.
And who all lived there with you?
Our youngest, Marissa McGinnis, would stay there a few days a week. And then it was me and Jimmy.
And on August 28th, who all was staying at the residence? August 28th of 2018, excuse me.
Jimmy and I, Marissa and Mackenzie and Ember, and Miranda and Sean.
You say Sean. Do you know the defendant, Sean Foley?
Yes, sir.
Is he in the courtroom here today?
Yes.
Could you please identify him?
He's sitting at the table on my right in the center.
How long had Sean been staying at your and Jimmy's house prior to the shooting?
He showed up. It was Thursday evening, but Friday morning, like about 1:30 in the morning.
About 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday?
Yes.
And the shooting was on a Tuesday morning, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. How did he come to stay there?
He texted me to see if he could come stay at our house until Miranda got out of jail, because he had told her that he wanted to be there for her when she got out.
Had he stayed there before?
Yes, he stayed there before, previously on other nights when we had different things.
Did you know Mr. Foley had a gun at the house when he was there?
No, I did not.
Would that have caused you any concern?
It would have, just because we always lock up all of ours. Jimmy had a safe, and his gun always went in it every night. So we wouldn't want that put up where kids couldn't get to it.
You said Miranda, your daughter, got out of jail that Monday, correct?
Correct.
Who bonded her out of jail?
He's our next door neighbor. His name is Brandon. I'm not exactly sure what bonds company he works for.
And who paid the bondsman?
Jimmy agreed to, and then, of course, he couldn't until I had to.
Had you discussed with Mr. Shelton, Sean, and Miranda staying there after she got out of jail?
She got out of jail, and just to stay that evening after that.
Did Miranda have any children? Do you have any grandchildren from Miranda?
Yes.
Where were they staying?
Amber was staying at our house that weekend, too.
How long had you known Mr. Foley prior to the shooting?
The beginning of the year, he went on a family vacation with us.
Where was that to?
The wilderness and the Smokies.
Okay. And you said that was the beginning of 2018?
I think it was like February or the 1st of March.
So would you say he was around your family a lot, or was it frequent? Or
He was around our family frequently, yes.
Did he have any children that you had met?
Yes. Raven.
Raven? How old was she?
She was 3. She turned 4 at her home.
Okay. At your home?
Yes.
Had she stayed at your home before?
Yes.
Was that frequent, or?
I mean, whenever Sean was there and she was with him, yeah, they stayed at the house.
So, and I guess, did Sean seem okay with his daughter staying there?
Yeah, he even asked for her to stay in our bedroom one night.
Let me ask you, prior to the shooting, had you and Jimmy made any arrangements to get Miranda a vehicle?
We had briefly discussed it. He had a Discover card, and so he had said I can get her a card on that, and she can just make the payments all on the Discover card every month.
Okay, so he was going to buy her a car.
Yes, sir.
Monday evening, that night after Miranda got out of jail and got to your house, what was everyone doing?
They came in, and then Brandon came over. They kind of, Jimmy came home, so everybody was there in the home. And then I needed to go to bed because I was on call. And so when I went to sleep, Brandon and Jimmy and Miranda and Sean were all at the table. The girls, Amber and Kenzie, were already asleep. And then Rissa was running out because she was still pregnant at the time to get a coffee craving that she had and some ice.
You said you were on call. What do you do for a living, ma'am?
I'm a funeral director.
Where's that at?
Cremation option.
Do you know what time it was that you? Well, you said your youngest daughter Marissa was pregnant.
Yes.
How far along was she?
I think she was 37 and a half weeks.
Do you know what time it was when you went to bed initially?
It was about 11 o'clock.
And did you have plans the next morning? What were you going to do the next morning?
We had to get up the next morning and get the girls ready because Rissa needed to drop Kenzie off at Head Start and meet Ember's dad to drop her off with Ember, and Jimmy had to be at the morning shift at Costco.
Now, you say Marissa had left when you went to bed, but who all was still up in the house when you went to bed initially?
When I went to bed the first time, Jimmy, Brandon, Miranda, and Sean.
And what were they doing?
They were sitting at the dining room table going over the bond paperwork and everything.
Okay. And did you do anything before you went to bed?
I gave Jimmy a kiss and a hug, and he said he'd be in later. And, I said, I'm sorry, Brandon, but I'm on call. Don't need to be rude.
Now, did you have occasion to get out of bed that night before the shooting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. About what time was that?
It was about 12:30, 1 o'clock.
All right. And why did you get out of bed?
Jimmy wasn't in bed, and I knew that he had asked me to remind him that he had to work the morning shift. He had switched shifts, so it wasn't originally a shift he was going to work. And so I got up, and I reminded him he was sitting at the dining room table, and I reminded him, and I said, honey, you got to be up in the morning. You're working morning shift. And at that time, Miranda came running out, hugging me and said, I love you, Mom. And she just had a shower and everything. And so her and Sean and Jimmy were there in the dining room, kitchen area.
And when was the next time you saw Jimmy after that?
He came in about 5 minutes after that, and he kissed me and told me that he loved me. He'd be in just a little bit.
Did you get out of bed a second time later that night?
Yes, sir.
About what time was that?
It was about 3:30.
And can I show you? I'm sorry. What was going on around 3:30?
Jimmy still wasn't in the bed, so I got up, and when I went out into the kitchen, no one was in the house, and so I went and I stood on the back deck, and I could hear them in the man cave. And I don't know if they were listening to music or watching TV, but they were all in there, and it sounded like they were having a good time. So I knew Jimmy would be on in, and so I went back in.
And when was the next time you woke up?
When I heard gunshots.
Do you know what time that was?
At the time I didn't, but later on I knew it was 6 o'clock in the morning.
And what did you do or think when you heard gunshots?
At first I was upset because I thought that Jimmy was shooting at our burn barrel in our yard, and I was going to get on to him because, I didn't know what time it was, so I thought that's what they were doing.
So what did you do? Did you go anywhere after you heard the shots?
I got straight up and I went out our back door, and I said, what's going on here? And that's when I saw him on the back deck.
If I can show you what's previously been admitted as Exhibit 15. When you went out on the back deck, does that appear familiar?
Yes.
Is that where Jimmy was located?
Yes, sir.
Where was Miranda? Could you see Miranda when you went out on the back deck?
She was in front of my outside bedroom door, curled up in a ball between a table and the grill.
Did she do anything?
She was just bawling and saying, no.
Did you see Sean?
Yes,
Where was Sean?
he was on into the deck.
I can show you what's previously been admitted as 14. So, which door did you come out initially?
I came out this door right here.
Okay, and I know we have a general idea, but where was Jimmy located on the deck when you came out?
Right here.
And where was Miranda?
Right here.
And where was the defendant?
Right here.
And what was the defendant doing?
He had a phone to his ear and he had the gun in his other hand.
Do you remember which hand was which?
Phone in his hand and gun in his hand.
So when you saw Jimmy lying there, what did you do?
Yeah, I went over and I tried to get a pulse and I laid my hand on him to see if he was breathing. And I couldn't get a pulse and I couldn't tell that he was breathing.
Could you see any visible injuries on Jimmy?
Yes.
What did you see?
That he had been shot, but there just wasn't a lot of blood.
Could you hear the defendant saying anything when he was over there?
He was hollering on the phone that he was molesting Miranda, and I remember just going over and kind of screaming at him, it doesn't matter what a person's doing, you don't have the right to kill him. Because I thought that Jimmy was dead at this time. I didn't know he was on the phone with 911. I just knew that he had the phone to his ear.
Did you do anything to render any aid to Jimmy?
Yeah, I asked why nobody was calling 911, and I went back in my house to our bedroom and got my phone, and I came back out. And I couldn't get 911 on the phone because there was blood on my hands, so Marissa took it from me and got 911 on the phone.
And what did 911 tell you to do as far as aiding Jimmy?
They said to do CPR, and at that moment I had forgot until she said to put the hilt of my hand, and then it all came back and we started doing compressions and Marissa started breathing for me.
And did your attempts to administer CPR have any effect on Jimmy?
No.
Did you see Jimmy do anything?
Before I went back in the house to get my phone, he turned his head and he looked at me, and then he took his last breath.
Let me ask you, in performing CPR on Jimmy, did you have to move his body at all?
Yes, Marissa pulled him more over on the porch. One of his legs was up, and so she flattened his leg. And then we just kind of had to scoot his head over a little bit so we could make sure that he was in the proper position when we were breathing.
What portion of CPR did you perform?
The compressions,
And what did Marissa do?
she would breathe.
And it didn't have any effect when you did any breathing or anything?
No, all you could hear was the rattle.
What do you mean the rattle?
Just his lungs were full of blood, so it just rattled every time she would breathe for him.
Eventually, did law enforcement and first responders arrive?
Yes, sir.
And what happened when they arrived?
We had to stop the CPR and be taken away from Jimmy. And there were so many of them, I couldn't see Jimmy, but they separated Rissa and I, and Rissa stayed on the porch, and I was off at the porch on the side.
You said Jimmy owned a handgun as well?
Yes, sir.
Do you know where that was at?
It was in our safe in the bedroom.
Did you do anything with law enforcement in regards to confirming that?
When one of the detectives had asked me, I took him into our bedroom and I punched in the code, and it drops open, and Jimmy's gun was there.
I assume you gave a statement to law enforcement, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Eventually, after all this settles down, is the residence, is it released back to you?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do at that point in time once you got the home back?
At that point, I kind of just started cleaning up. So I went to the third bedroom to start cleaning up.
The third bedroom. Who was staying in the third bedroom?
Miranda and Sean.
Let me ask you, on this photograph here, would you be able to see any of the windows to the third bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Which would that be?
This is the third bedroom window, and that's the third bedroom bathroom window.
Okay, so the room where Miranda and Sean were staying would have windows that overlook that porch?
Yes, this one right here.
Okay. When you were cleaning up the third bedroom, did you notice anything unusual?
We have a set of curtains that block the light out, and so they're always closed, and those happen to be open, and then the blinds were stuck open.
Do you recognize what's previously been entered as exhibit number 13?
Yes.
And again, is this just a different angle of the porch?
Yeah.
I'm going to clear this out for you.
Thank you.
And again, the window into the third bedroom, is that located there?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to ask if I'm going to show you a zoomed-in photograph of that window. Does that appear to be that window?
Yes, sir.
And does that appear to show the blinds as you described them?
Yes.
All right, ask this come in as the exhibit 80, please.
Any objection?
No objection.
So receiving evidence is 80.
So when you looked at it, you could tell that, I guess, the blinds had been disturbed to some degree,
Yes, sir.
and the curtains were cracked.
Yes.
Let me ask you, I assume prior to, at any point that night, did you hear any sort of disturbances, commotions, anything like that?
No.
Did you ever hear anyone yelling for help or screaming for help?
No, sir.
Okay. I do, if I can, I want to show you one more previously admitted exhibit, just for clarification purposes. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, sir.
We've heard the term man cave a couple times. Do you see the man cave in this photograph?
I see the man cave.
What? Can you circle it for us, please?
Sorry.
And where is the back porch? Can you see the back porch there in relation to that?
There we are, right there.
Okay. All right, thank you. No further questions.
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis, hi. My name's Aaron Kinsey.
Hello.
Hello. Ma'am, where were you at when the shooting occurred?
In my bedroom, in the bed.
About how far away from the door is your bed?
The door to our bedroom is like at the end of this cabinet to where I am,
Okay.
to our bed.
Okay, so you heard the gunshots. You went to the door. You opened the door.
Not our bedroom door. I went out to the kitchen and through the laundry room door.
All right, so you went all the way around. You opened the door. And so when you come out that door, can you describe immediately what you immediately saw?
I saw Jimmy on the ground, on the deck.
Directly in front of you.
Yes.
Okay. And Miranda is down and to your right?
Yeah.
Okay. In that corner?
Yes.
Do you know how Miranda got there?
No. I just know that's where she was when I opened the door.
Okay. And you stated that Jimmy's gun was in the safe.
Yes, sir.
And you keep the guns locked up in safes because there are children there, right?
That's correct.
Where were the other guns?
In the man cave.
They were not in safes.
Not in the man cave, no.
Okay. Raven had her birthday party. Raven is Sean's daughter, is that correct?
Correct.
Raven had her birthday party at your house.
Correct.
Is that correct? How many times had Raven stayed there?
2 or 3 times, I think.
Okay. And I guess you testified that Raven had stayed in your bedroom?
Sean had asked for Raven to stay in our bedroom, and I was not comfortable with that, and so I took the mattress off the top of the bed and took it to Miranda and said that this is not okay. She needs to sleep in the same room with her dad.
Okay. And so Raven slept in?
She ended up
Bedroom
sleeping in
number
that third bedroom with Miranda and Sean.
You testified that you and Jimmy had discussed buying Miranda a vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Did you discuss how much you were going to spend on it?
He had just said $2,000.
He had said $2,000.
Yes, sir.
Not discuss the type of vehicle.
No.
Not discuss a specific vehicle.
No.
Okay. Can you discuss the financial situation that your family was going through right then?
We weren't really going through a financial situation.
Okay. Financial, everything was fine in your house?
Yes, sir.
You had the ability to buy the $2,000 car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long had Jimmy molested Miranda?
I don't know that he did. He never admitted that to me, and no one ever told me that he did.
She never told you that she did that?
No.
Did you ever speak to police officers about her being molested?
I don't remember speaking to police officers. I do remember DCS coming out to our home.
Okay. How many times did they come out?
I don't remember. I just know the last time was, I think, in 2009, I think.
And why were they there?
My ex-mother-in-law had made accusations.
Just your ex-mother-in-law?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The school, nobody at any
It
Miranda
was during the
schools?
summer.
Say again?
It was during the summer.
Okay. Nobody at any of the schools had alleged?
No,
No.
not in 2009.
I'm going to ask you to speak up.
I'm sorry.
When did they, you said not in 2009, when did the teachers or counselors at the school allege?
Your Honor, respectfully, I'm going to object at this point. I mean, we've gone through this, but this isn't a trial about what happened in 2009 or allegations about 2009, so I don't really see the relevance at this point in time. Miranda Goddard has testified as to what she says happened when they were younger. She has testified that what Jimmy has told her and what Miranda didn't tell her. I don't really see the relevance of going through all of what happened or may have alleged to have happened back in 2009.
Your response?
My response is it goes to the state of mind of each of the individuals involved, that not including my clients.
I'll let you respond to that, General.
You know, first of all, I guess the question is what Sean Foley knew. I guess you could ask her if she's ever told Sean Foley anything, if that's the state of mind of whatever, but what DCS people questioned her in 2009 is not going to have anything to do with the state of mind of any of the parties here, I don't believe, respectfully.
Mr. Kinsey, at this time, given how you've already gone into this, I'm going to sustain the objection.
Sure.
It's not been linked to the trial today.
Yes, Your Honor. Ma'am, did you speak with and give a statement to Blount County Sheriff's officers regarding this case?
I'm not sure I understand. Detectives asked me questions when all of this happened.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
There was an interview. When was that interview?
When they were at our home, and then we came back on a Sunday.
Okay. Are you aware of whether that was recorded or not?
Yes, it was recorded.
Thank you. Nothing further at this time.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Any questions? the question by letter.
This is question number I from the jury. Ms. McGinnis, why did you go through the kitchen door and not the bedroom door?
We never really use the bedroom door, even though it goes out there. We just always use the back door to the laundry room. I don't know why. That's just what we decided to do.
Okay.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, subject to recall.
I'm sorry,
I asked for subject to recall.
okay.
All right, you are excused. However, you still remain under subpoena. Thank you.
All right, next witness, state call for Marissa McGinnis Det.
Just raise your right hand, please, ma'am.
Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please be seated.
If you could, please pull your chair up and speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Ms. McGinnis, would you care to state your name and could you spell your first and last name?
Marissa McGinnis, Marissa McGinnis.
How old are you, Ms. McGinnis?
21.
Do you know Miranda Goddard?
Yes,
How do you know Miranda?
she's my sister.
What about Dawn McGinnis?
She's my mom.
And did you know the victim in this case, Jimmy Shelton?
Yes,
How did you know Mr. Shelton?
he was my stepdad.
Had he been in your life for a long time?
17 years.
Was Jimmy ever a violent person?
No,
Ever do any harm to you?
no.
What about the defendant in this case, Sean Foley? How did you know, or do you know, Sean Foley?
He was my sister's boyfriend.
How long had he been coming around when Mr. Shelton was shot and killed?
A few months.
On the night of August the 28th of last year, well, let me ask you this. Do you have children?
I have two.
And how old are they?
One's about to be 1, and I have a 5-year-old daughter.
And the one that's about to be 1, were you pregnant with her him back on August the 28th of 2018?
Yes,
And your older child, was she present at the house on August 28th of 2018?
she was.
Who else was in the home that night?
My mom, Jimmy, Sean, Miranda, Amber, which is my sister's.
Had Sean been staying there for a little while?
Yeah, just a few days.
Did he stay there fairly frequently?
Whenever my sister stayed there.
Did he ever stay with your grandmother?
I think he had stayed a couple nights there with my sister.
And how far is your grandmother's residence from where Dawn and Jimmy were living at 808 Beaver Drive?
Probably like 7 minutes.
Now, on this night, when everybody was there at the house, at some point did you leave to go get coffee or something?
Yeah.
Do you remember what time that was?
Probably like 9-ish.
And you were very pregnant at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
Were you drinking any alcohol at all?
No, I wasn't.
What were Jimmy and Miranda and Sean doing when you got back to the house that night?
Jimmy was in the office playing a computer game, and then Miranda and Sean were in the bathroom.
What were Miranda and Sean doing in the bathroom?
They were taking a shower and having sex.
How do you know that?
I could hear them.
And so were you in the office there with Mr. Shelton?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 11, hopefully. Oops, too far. Sorry. Will it? Wow. Or not. Okay. All right. I'll show you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 11. Ms. McGinnis, do you see the office where you and Mr. Shelton were talking that night on that diagram?
Yes.
Can you circle it there for us on the screen? Okay. And the bathroom where where the defendant and Miranda were, is it also on there?
Yes.
Where is it? Okay. Now, could you tell us, on that particular diagram, marked as bedroom number 1, who's sleeping in bedroom number 1?
My daughter was.
Okay. Is that where you would eventually go to bed?
Yes, ma'am.
And then who's, there's an area that's not marked off the big bathroom there in the back of the house. What is that? And if you need me to, I'll actually point out to you what I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about this one? Right here?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that is my mom's bedroom.
That's your mom's bedroom?
Yeah.
Did she share that bedroom with Jimmy Shelton?
Yes.
Then who had been sleeping in bedroom number 2?
At the time, Miranda and Sean.
And I know Miranda's daughter was there that night too.
Yeah.
Where was she sleeping?
She was sleeping with my mom in her bedroom.
Okay, and that's the one that's not marked?
Yeah.
All right. So, at some point, do you go to bed? Do you remember what time that was?
Around midnight.
Who all was still up when you went to bed?
Miranda, Shauna, and Jimmy.
So, at some point, where were they when you went to bed?
They were all in the kitchen.
Sitting around the kitchen table?
Yeah.
What were they doing?
Well, when I went to bed, the bondsman had come over, and they were all still talking when I went to bed.
Okay. Any problems with anybody? Any arguments going on?
No.
Did you see any weapons at that time?
No.
So at some point, did you get awakened after you went to bed?
Yes.
Do you remember what time that was?
6 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yes.
What caused you to wake up?
I heard 3 loud booms.
What did you do when you heard those booms?
I got up and went down the hallway and just tried to figure out what was going on, and then I went to the kitchen. And the back door was open, and that's when I seen everything.
The back door that was open, is that the back door that's located there in the laundry room?
Yes.
So when you say you saw everything, what did you see when you came out onto the porch?
I saw Jimmy laying there with his head over the porch. And Sean was over to the side. My sister was somewhere in the middle between all that. My mom was somewhere in the middle between that too.
I'm going to show you what we've called Exhibit 14 and ask you, Miss McGinnis, do you recognize that porch?
Yes.
Could you show us where, if you could circle there, where it was that you saw Jimmy? Did you need to move him when you went out onto the porch?
Yes.
What caused you to need to move him?
To do CPR.
Who was helping you with the CPR?
My mother.
Which part of the CPR were you doing?
The breathing.
And what was your mom doing?
The compressions.
Could you see where the defendant was? You said he was standing somewhere. Where was he standing?
He was standing more over here, but he was in the gravel part.
So a little bit further off.
Yeah.
And if you keep going that way, what are you in front of?
The man cave.
Okay. What was the defendant doing when you saw him out there?
He was on the phone.
And what was Miranda doing?
She was kind of just freaking out.
Okay. Did you say anything to her?
I had asked her if she had anything done to her, and she said no.
Did the defendant try to help, come over and physically try to help Jimmy?
No.
Do you see the person did he have a gun in his hand when you saw him?
Yes.
Do you remember which hand he had it in?
His left.
Do you see the person who had that gun in their hand in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you identify him if you don't mind, Miss McGinnis? Where's he sitting? I know you're pointing over here.
He's in between those two.
He's in the middle at this table. Thank you, Miss McGinnis. They may have some questions. Okay.
Mr. Kinsey,
No questions for this witness.
may this witness be excused?
Yes.
You are excused. Thank you for your comments. Next witness.
Our state calls Detective Shannon Carswell.
You swear affirm to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Will you state your name for the record, please?
Shannon Carswell,
And where are you employed?
the Blount County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been employed there?
23 years.
And what is your current position in the Blount County Sheriff's Office?
I'm a detective.
And how long have you been a detective?
Approximately not 20 years now.
20 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Detective, have you received any training specific to the investigation of homicide cases?
Yes, once I became a detective, I was sent to criminal investigation school. We have homicide investigation training, sex abuse, child abuse, interview and interrogation schools.
And Detective, if I could please direct your attention to August the 28th of 2018. Were you assigned to an investigation on that date?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you just tell us about how all that sort of came about?
That morning, at approximately 6:30 in the morning, I received a call from dispatch just requesting that I respond to 808 Beaver Drive in reference to a shooting.
Did you receive any specific assignments in reference to that shooting?
I did. On my way there, anytime we have a major case like a homicide, there's a detective assigned as a lead detective, and then we have a secondary detective, as well as a lead crime scene investigator and a secondary. So my supervisor advised me that I would be the lead on it, and Detective Davis would be second.
What about the CSI investigators?
I was told that it would be Investigator Brian Talbot, and his second would be Jessica Sparks.
Do you know what time it was that you arrived on scene?
I arrived on scene about 7:09 in the morning.
And what was going on when you arrived?
When I arrived, there were still several patrolmen on scene. Investigator Talbot was already on scene. Detective Davis were on scene. It was secured with crime scene tape, and they were waiting on my arrival.
All right. So what, just in general, your process, you've been assigned to a lead detective in a case involving a death, a shooting. What is going to be your process when you get to a scene? What are you going to do?
Normally, one of the first things, once I arrive on scene, I talk to the responding deputies. In this case, it was Deputy Craig Flanagan and Deputy Ryan Cook. They were my first officers on scene. So I spoke to them, found out what had been done up to that point, which the scene was secure. There was a crime scene log that was being kept by Deputy Costner, I believe it was. And then I was advised that the alleged suspect was in custody in one of the patrol cars, as well as a female witness.
Do you know who that female witness was?
Miranda Goddard.
Did you do anything next as far as assessing the crime scene itself?
I did. I originally just did a walkthrough of the crime scene to see, what I had.
And did you find what potentially could have been used in this shooting during that process?
I did. During my initial walkthrough, I observed a handgun in the mailbox there at 808.
Was there anything located in the roadway that was
Yes.
potential evidence?
There was a black phone that was located in the roadway that Sean Foley had indicated during the 911 call that was his.
Did you were you able to locate the victim?
Yes, so I continued on around to the back porch of the residence where I observed the victim laying on the back porch.
Did you observe any injuries to the victim?
I did. I saw what appeared to be 4 gunshot wounds to his chest area, upper torso.
Did you see any other evidence on the porch that might have been indicative of a shooting?
Yes, there was a garden hose that was furled up there on the porch that there was a holster laying in the middle of. Above the victim's head, there was 5 shell casings on the porch. We located another shell casing just off the porch near the victim's head, and then another one was located next to the house.
Were you able to determine whether there were any other firearms potentially at all involved in this incident?
There was not.
Do you know who owned the home there?
Yes, Jimmy Shelton and Don McGinnis.
And did you determine who all was present at the time of the shooting?
I did. Of course, Don and Jimmy Shelton were present, as well as Sean Foley, Miranda Goddard, Miranda's sister Marissa, and the 2 small children.
Now, I assume a lot of initial investigation involved asking questions, correct?
Correct.
So how all did that work as far as, not any specifics, but as far as all the individuals there?
Detective Davis and I originally, after we spoke to the responding deputies, we talked to Marissa McGinnis and Don McGinnis, who were there on scene, just as an initial type interview.
What did you do regarding the body, and what's your process when you have a homicide, or at least an alleged homicide, potential homicide? What are you going to do in regards to the body?
Originally, of course, it's photographed before we do anything, and before I do anything, I contact the local medical examiner, which in this case was Dr. Benson. I contacted him at approximately 8:03 in the morning. We do that before we move the victim or collect any evidence off the victim. So I did that. And then I did a closer inspection of the body.
Okay. Let me ask you, is there any paperwork as far as transporting the victim or anything like that you're going to have to execute?
Yes, a request for an autopsy order is signed.
What all's involved in that?
We fill out the paperwork and take it to the DA's office, and one of the attorney generals sign it, and then it's sent with the body to the forensic center.
Is there any notification made to the victim's family or anything?
Yes, we notify the next of kin of the upcoming autopsy.
Now, I assume after your initial conversations, you conduct a more formal interview process?
Correct.
Who all did you interview formally in relation to this? Not asking you what they said, just who all did you interview?
On that day, we responded to the office and we interviewed Miranda Goddard. We attempted to interview Mr. Foley. And then later we did a more formal interview with Marissa McGinnis and Don McGinnis.
You say you attempted to interview Mr. Foley. I assume he declined?
Correct.
Okay. All right. You mentioned something that was lying in the road, the cell phone, correct?
Correct.
What did you do in regards to that cell phone to check it for potential evidence?
The cell phone was collected as evidence. I obtained a search warrant, and once that search warrant was executed, the phone was downloaded.
Okay. And when you go through a phone that's been downloaded, what are you looking for?
We look for call logs, text messages, videos, audio recordings.
And how many phones were downloaded in relation to this?
There were 2 cell phones. The other phone was located in the man cave, and it was identified as Jimmy Shelton's phone.
Okay. Throughout the review of the phones, could you tell if Mr. Shelton and Mr. Foley, the defendant, had communicated at all in the moments, minutes, hours, days leading up to this?
Yes, there were some text messages between Mr. Shelton and Mr. Foley.
And what was the nature of those text messages?
Yes. We're going to take a brief recess. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to send you back to the jury room at this time. Please adhere to all the court's admonitions. Do not have any discussions about this case. Begin any deliberations. Do not consult any outside sources or do any independent research. Thank you all very much. All rise. Please be seated. Mr. Kinsey, there's an objection?
Yes, Your Honor. I would object to the admission of the text messages on Mr. Shelton's phone. Judge, the basis of my objection is 404B. I believe that the Attorney General is attempting to use the text messages to show action and conformity. Your Honor, what, and I guess the nature of it is, I think the state is going to use those text messages to show that there was a relationship other than, a consistent relationship, meaning there was normal text messages between the two. They were friends, family, which I believe is actually in conformity with a character trait.
General?
Your Honor, the state's position, I guess, is pretty clear. The whole, as has been clear throughout opening and questioning of witnesses, the whole argument here is self-defense and that Mr. Foley was in fear for his life from Mr. Shelton, that he was worried about Mr. Shelton, whether it's being armed or attacking him or whatever. And the text message conversations, which are very, very benign, the state would just attempt to use that there was certainly no fear from Mr. Foley about Mr. Shelton. At any point in time leading up to it, there was no animosity, no arguments, just completely benign, normal conversation showing a normal, healthy relationship between individuals that the state intends to use to show that there was no reason for Mr. Foley to fear Mr. Shelton, that there was certainly no history between the two of them for them to fear one another. So that is the proposed relevance that the state is seeking to introduce those under.
And you're seeking text messages from both phones?
Yeah, so, and I guess to avoid jury out hearings, multiple ones. So there is a text extraction report regarding the text messages between Mr. Foley and Mr. Shelton. Those can be found on both phones. I think I pulled these off of Mr. Shelton's phone, but that can be found on both phones. Then there's a text conversation between Mr. Shelton and Miss Goddard, which again is just very benign, showing that they had a completely normal, on its face, healthy relationship between Miranda Goddard and Jimmy Shelton, that there was no fear, there was no worry from Miss Goddard or nothing of that nature regarding Mr. Shelton. And then eventually the state is likewise going to seek to introduce the text conversations between Mr. Foley and Miss Goddard, which the state would suggest are less benign and more troublesome or concerning as to the morality of their relationship.
I think at this time, do either of you object to, because it's three separate documents, to the court doing an in-camera review of the content?
I do not.
No, Your Honor.
You both characterize it, I think I need to see it for myself. You don't object to an in-camera review?
I do not.
Can I have those marked for identification?
Yes, Your Honor. The text messages between Mr. Foley and Mr. Shelton, if we could have marked for ID as Exhibit 81.
Okay.
The text messages between Mr. Foley and Miss Goddard, if we could have marked for ID as Exhibit 82.
Okay, so that's two.
And the text messages between Mr. Shelton and Miss Goddard, if we had marked for ID as Exhibit 83.
Okay, at this time, the court is going to conduct an in-camera review of Exhibits 81, 82, and 83 that have been marked for identification purposes. Court will be in recess. Hope to be back, say 3 o'clock, in a 15-minute recess. Thank you. Depending on, I'm not sure how lengthy these are, I'm going to do my best. All right, court's in recess.